If this story is already pulling your heartstrings, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because at Kindness Speaks, real stories like these remind us how a single act can change a life. The clatter of dishes echoed through the back corridor of the struggling Bluebell Bistro, one of the oldest locations in Elliott Marsh's national restaurant chain. Once known for its warm service and booming weekend crowd, this branch had been bleeding profits for nearly a year. Reports painted it as a staff problem, high turnover, low productivity, but Elliott, a firm believer in walking the ground himself, had grown tired of filtered boardroom briefings and doctored spreadsheets. So, for the first time in over 2 decades, the 52-year-old CEO put on a grease-stained apron, slipped into an old pair of sneakers, and walked through the back entrance not as a boss, but as Eli, a recently hired dishwasher nobody knew. The kitchen was a whirlwind, sizzling oil, barking orders, steam rising like fog, but what caught Elliott's eye wasn't the chaos. It was a young man at the sink, working in complete silence. Slender, maybe early 20s, with tired eyes and hands moving so fast it seemed like muscle memory. He didn't look up, didn't speak, didn't pause, not even to wipe the sweat dripping from his brow. That was Ravi. Unlike the others, Ravi didn't complain when the dinner rush swelled. He simply stayed behind the sink, sleeves rolled high, doing the job of 2 people without a single word. No clock-ins, no name tag, no chatter with coworkers. Just presence. And something about his stillness, his unwavering focus, made Elliott's instincts hum. This wasn't just hard work. It was desperation. Elliott had come undercover to diagnose a broken branch. But as he watched Ravi scrub plates long after the others left, a quiet feeling took root. Maybe the heart of the problem wasn't lazy employees. Maybe the real story here was someone no one else had bothered to see. The days passed, and Elliott, still wearing the name, Eli, like a borrowed coat, settled into the rhythm of back kitchen life. He scrubbed pans, took out the trash, and blended in as just another tired worker trying to make ends meet. But no matter how early he arrived or how late he stayed, Ravi was always already there, scrubbing, rinsing, wiping, quiet as a shadow and twice as unnoticed. The odd part wasn't just his silence. It was his schedule. Elliott started to keep track. Ravi worked both the lunch and dinner rushes, every single day, including weekends. He never took breaks, never ate from the free staff meals, and never once clocked in. Officially, he didn't exist. At first, Elliott thought perhaps Ravi was simply being exploited, some intern the kitchen manager had roped in. But when he asked casually about the guy, the responses were vague. "Oh, Ravi, he's always been here, man. He just helps out. Not sure who hired him." No one really knew. No one seemed to care. In a staff meeting, when Elliott, still undercover, half-joked that Ravi might be a ghost, someone laughed and said, "Wouldn't surprise me. He just appears, works, and disappears. Dude's like a kitchen myth." That night, Elliott stayed late, pretending to mop the floors. When the last chef clocked out and the kitchen lights dimmed, Ravi was still scrubbing the sink. Then, when he thought no one was watching, he picked up a torn duffel bag and quietly slipped down the back stairs, not toward the exit, but toward the basement. Curious and concerned, Elliott waited a few minutes, then followed. The staircase led to a maintenance corridor few ever used. Tucked behind a stack of broken bar stools and empty detergent crates was a supply closet, its door barely ajar. Elliott peeked inside, and froze. There, in the musty dark, lay a flattened cardboard box as a bed, a thin blanket, and a single taped photo of a little girl with the brightest smile. Ravi hadn't been leaving the restaurant, because he lived in it. And in that moment, Elliott realized, this wasn't just about long shifts. This was survival. The next morning, Elliott didn't go in as Eli the dishwasher. He walked in early, before anyone else, wearing his real face, the CEO's face, and waited at the back entrance where Ravi usually arrived. When the young man appeared, duffel slung over one shoulder and eyes heavy from a sleepless night, Elliott stepped forward gently. "Ravi," he said, and the name alone made the boy flinch like he'd been struck. "Can we talk?" For a moment, Ravi looked like he might run. But something in Elliott's voice, calm, fatherly, kind, stopped him. They sat together in the empty kitchen, steamers hissing softly in the background, the only witnesses to the conversation. At first, Ravi denied everything. Said he had a place to stay, claimed he was just helping out. But slowly, with Elliot's patient silence wrapping around him like a warm blanket, the truth unraveled. Ravi had come to the country on a student visa, but when his younger sister back home in India fell gravely ill, every penny his family had was funneled into her treatment. He dropped out of school, lost his legal status, and slipped through the cracks. With nowhere to go and no right to work, he found refuge in the one place that wouldn't ask questions if he just kept his head down, a busy kitchen with more dishes than staff. He didn't care about money or comfort. All he cared about was sending what little he could to a hospital across the world where his sister was fighting to stay alive. "If I don't send money," Ravi whispered, eyes wet but unblinking, "she dies." Elliot sat there for a long time, staring at this young man who had given up everything, not for a dream, but for family. And in that stillness, he knew, this boy didn't need punishment. He needed help. Elliot returned to his office that afternoon, not as the distant executive he had once been, but as a man who had just seen something sacred hidden in the cracks of a crumbling business. He called HR immediately, explained Ravi's situation, and asked if there was a way, any legal channel, to make things right. But their answers were cold and procedural. "He's undocumented. He never filled out a W-2. If this gets out, it could trigger an audit. We could face fines, even lawsuits." Elliot listened quietly, then simply said, "I'm not asking about the company. I'm asking what I can do." That night, Elliot met Ravi outside the restaurant and handed him a manila envelope with a personal contract inside, a short-term work agreement funded entirely from Elliot's own salary. It included retroactive pay for 6 months of dishwashing, a temporary housing stipend, and a lawyer's contact who specialized in humanitarian visa appeals. Ravi opened the envelope with trembling hands, his lips parting in disbelief. Why are you doing this?" he asked, voice cracking. Elliot just smiled. "Because someone finally noticed you. And it's time the world did, too." Ravi broke down then, sobbing into the sleeve of his uniform, releasing months, maybe years, of silent pain. That same evening, they called the hospital in India together. Elliot transferred the money directly. Treatment began the next day. In that moment, Ravi wasn't just a dishwasher or an undocumented worker or a ghost in the system. He was a brother with hope. And for the first time in a long while, he stood up straighter, not because the world had changed, but because someone had chosen to stand beside him in it. 6 months later, the once failing Bluebell Bistro had become the pride of the company. Customer reviews were glowing again, staff turnover had dropped to nearly zero, and something intangible filled the air: purpose. At the heart of it all was Ravi, now clean-cut, uniformed, and legally employed under a rare humanitarian visa the company's lawyers, guided by Elliot, had fought hard to secure. He had gone from scrubbing dishes in silence to becoming the assistant kitchen manager, training new hires, mentoring younger workers, and spreading calm efficiency through every corner of the kitchen. But his proudest achievement wasn't the promotion. It was the photo he now kept in his locker. His sister, smiling from her hospital bed, healthy, her treatment complete. And next to her, a handwritten note that simply read, "Tell your brother he saved my life." At the annual company gala, held in a ballroom glittering with lights and applause, Elliot took the stage. After his usual company updates, he paused, his voice thick with something deeper than business. "Tonight," he said, "I want to share the story of someone you've all seen, but perhaps never truly noticed." He then told the full story of the dishwasher no one had hired, who had worked double shifts for free, who had lived in a closet to save a life. When he called Ravi up to the stage, the room erupted in a standing ovation. Ravi walked up, humbled, overwhelmed, and blinking against tears. No longer a ghost, no longer invisible. He stood under the lights, a symbol of sacrifice, quiet strength, and the extraordinary power of being seen. And somewhere in the crowd, hearts shifted. Because sometimes, the greatest leaders are born in the shadows, waiting for someone to believe they deserve the light. Have you ever met someone quietly carrying the weight of the world? Tell us in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else. And if Ravi's journey touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Because every view helps kindness go viral.